The Jet Set Breakfast, 7 to 10 a.m.
It's 10 minutes after 8, and we are talking about a thing called food pantry. I absolutely love this idea. Carl van Blerk. Carl, is it okay? Van Blerk?
Correct. Good morning.
Good morning. How do I say it, Carl?
Well, it normally depends if I'm speaking to somebody in English or Afrikaans, but Van Black is the correct one, yes.
Van Black. Okay. Welcome to the show. I absolutely love this. You're the managing director and founder of Garden Route Food Pantry. This idea of collaborating with government, private sector, NGOs, and literally absolutely anybody and everybody to make sure that we do not find ourselves as a food insecure country. It's absolutely fantastic. Where did it come from?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I've had the privilege of working in relief or charity relief for about 15 years already. And the one thing that's always struck me is that it's pretty arrogant, I think, for any one organization to think we can solve the problem alone. And if we work together, and I've always had this belief in networking and collaborating, not only with government, but with the private sector, with individuals, with corporate, we can have such a bigger impact on what's going on, and especially when it comes to food relief. Food relief being the predominant issue at the moment. So it's been a bit of a dream of mine, I would say, for almost 10 years already, to start essentially a food bank, or what we've referred to as a food pantry. And if anything positive is going to come out of COVID, then hopefully the food pantry is going to be that one thing for us down here in the Garden Route.
So companies themselves in the private sector are also struggling. Are you getting enough support?
You know, that's an interesting question, because I think one can never say you get enough support. So we one of the things that we strive to do here is to encourage business to do so. Now, there are many ways for a business to get involved, especially the food industry. You know, we can offer tax relief as far as Section 18A certificates is concerned. So at least that way business can actually support us, but at the same way it helps them as well when it comes to their returns and all that as well. So we're constantly calling on business, and some industries that have managed to, I won't say thrive, but managed to survive, have been wonderful in trying to give back, because they see how other businesses have not. So it's one of those situations where you've got to pick out those that can, and we're very sensitive to that as well. At the moment, you know, people are really battling.
It's a big goal. I mean, it's a big goal,
huge.
Carl. I mean, I think about the number of people who don't actually ever raise their hands to say we're going hungry. So we know of those who go out and seek, grants and so on. But there are so many others who just don't even, go on the queues. Do you have a sense of how many people need you?
Yeah, that is a big question. I mean, sitting in the Garden Route, I would estimate, and I was looking at some statistics just recently, but we've got over about 400,000 to 500,000 families at the moment that are battling, and that's a huge elephant to eat, if I can put it that way. And of course, food security is probably the most difficult of all sorts of relief one can do, because as many people as I can feed today, tomorrow they're hungry again.
Yep.
And the other problem that we sit with is that more often than not, when one does feeding projects, the quality of the food is not always taken into that much consideration, because it's a matter of what you can get your hands on. So, but for me personally, I've done a little bit of research and looking into, and I've got a firm belief as well in trying to provide foods that fight against malnutrition, especially with kids is concerned. So we've got to be a little bit more cognizant of the quality of food. So the need, as you said, is huge, not just for food, but for the right kinds of food as well.
Yeah. What's the sustainable way to do this, Carl? Because as you said, you'd be collecting a lot of food. Sometimes it's quite tricky between the collection and then the distribution and making sure that you still have good food, and you want now food that is nutritious. So all of those, putting all of those things into account, sometimes nutritious foods needs to be stored properly and all of those things.
Yes.
What's your sustainable model?
Well, for us, there's a level of education that goes with it. So we spent a little bit of time looking at the logistics of the pantry, and how do we actually go about doing the distribution? How do we identify the people? And at the same time, how do we make sure that in a year or 2 or 3 years from now, not only are we still around, but we're not still feeding the same people necessarily?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we do is we have a system of identifying people and taking hands. And although we for us, the biggest model is not so much the what you would call the hamper. You know, when you knock on someone's door and you give them a hamper, because that really is not a sustainable option. But to rather identify feeding centers and models that can be sustainable in the community. And then, of course, we have another arm to the food pantry, which is our community gardens system. Now, there's a lot of talk about community gardens, not only in this country but worldwide. And I've seen models that are absolutely amazing. I was reading about one just the other day in the States. In fact, it's one that Elon Musk's brother is involved with in the States and doing exceptionally well. So I look at those and I see, well, what makes them so good and why is that sustainable? The problem with a food garden, though, is that it is it's one of those things where you've got to be able to motivate somebody and give them an incentive to create a garden, because they're starving today. They're hungry today. Their kids haven't eaten for 3 days. And now to say, well, let's plant a garden and in a few weeks' time you can maybe have a potato or tomato. So that is not an easy message to get across. So we need to be able to take hands with them from today, help them today with emergency sustenance of some sort, and then help them with a garden. And then what we do with a pantry is we create a bartering system. So once they get to harvest, they can take what they need, they can exchange with their local community,
I love that.
and then they can bring back to the pantry, and it helps us in exchange for other items like rice, soya, etc.
I love that, because you could be sitting, you've been really successful with your spinach, but you can only have so much spinach.
Exactly. Very much so.
You know, and I'd love something else. And my children maybe are sick and tired of the spinach, you know?
That's it. Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
So have you started with the gardens yet?
We have, yeah. It's the third leg of the project. So our food pantry is relatively new. We only started sort of around about December last year, and we've really gone very, very well. At this stage, we've distributed and have approximately 200,000 meals that we've been able to acquire and provide. So I think in the short time we've been doing that, it's been going really well. The gardening project is now taking root. Excuse the pun, but it has. And so we've got a couple of gardens in the area, and we're starting to network now with the professionals, because although I've got a huge passion for garden or for food relief or food security, I'm not a professional when it comes to the permaculture gardens. So we're starting to take hands with other organizations. We've got a wonderful organization in Knysna that does a lot of work there. We've got another here in George. We've got a couple of gardens in George already. There's about 4 or 5 big gardens in George that have started. So yes, yeah, they've already begun, and we're hoping that every single feeding center that's registered with us for aid will also be able to start a garden, so that
I get that, yeah.
Yeah, and that becomes that starts where we take hands and start to make a difference.
Let me ask you a strange question. What we've seen, with some of the really very badly handled food handouts and so on, what have they done to your work and trust levels when you go knocking on doors?
That is absolutely true, and it's one of those situations where one has to have almost I have to have hair on my back when it comes to food relief, because unfortunately there is such a stigma when it comes to this. As you say, over the past there has been a lot of corruption when it comes to food relief. And one of the things I'm very, very happy about, and that really makes a difference for us, is that we've been able to take hands with local government here. And the government, the municipalities have identified the fact that to a large extent, they've got to distance themselves from food relief. They've got to take it out of the hands of the politicians and so that we don't have this problem of who received a food pack and who didn't, and what political party are they voting for, and all of that nonsense. It's about people. So with them taking hands with us as a private organization, allowing us to look after the distribution, and we're also a very, very open book. I think transparency is absolutely essential. We're actually having a system written at the moment for us, an online cloud-based system, where anybody can actually go in and have a look and see, well, how much food has the food pantry been able to acquire, and where has it been distributed to? And hopefully that'll give us a little bit more credibility that people will support. But you're absolutely right. People are very hesitant to provide food relief, not only because of the corruption, because they also see it as an endless pit. So we've got to be able to gain trust that what we're doing is not only essential, but is working. Is absolutely working.
I also think that when you involve more people on the ground, it does get you some sort of trust with them as well.
Yes.
So those who you're assisting, your food banks that you talk about, the localized ones. To what extent are you accepting help from the ordinary person like myself?
Oh, lovely question. Yes, so I'm a big one for that. I really believe that the more people that get involved, the better. I don't like to do things sort of behind closed doors and then people sort of hear about it. So we tend to talk a lot about what we do, and it's not a bragging. It's more a matter of just helping or incentivizing people, encouraging people to get involved. So we've got a great volunteer system where people can volunteer. At the moment, our food pantry is based in George, but the idea is that in time, as we develop further, we will have a satellite or decentralized facility in each of the regions around the garden route. I think most people probably don't know, but the garden route is made up of 7 different municipalities. Most people know about George and Nyes and the Mossel Bay, but we've got Hesekwa and Pieter and various others as well. So there'll be a facility in each region where we invite people to volunteer and come and help us pack food, and when we've got our kitchen facilities up and running, we'll be cooking as well. Then finances is a big one. Now, we can do a lot when it comes to donations, but to give you an example, we recently had a wonderful donation of a highly fortified product, and fortified just means it's got added vitamins and minerals included. And we had a wonderful donation of about 1/2 ton from Cape Town, absolutely for free, but we had to arrange to get the food here to George. So we needed some funding just for the transportation. So we have a what we call a Friends of the Pantry, where people can commit to giving us 100 Rand a month, and they get a certificate and they get listed on a wall. We actually give them a brick inside the museum, inside the pantry. And for me, getting that sort of mass support, a little bit from a lot of people, goes a long way.
I fully agree. Do me a favor, Carl, and give me the face of the person you're feeding, because there are always these perceptions about who's actually going hungry. Just 1 or 2 stories.
Yeah. Oh, this is, it's heartbreaking, actually. When you see I have a bit of a passion for children, I must say. I mean, obviously we feed anybody and everybody that needs, but I have a passion for children because I really feel they are the victims. They are reliant on everybody else sort of helping them to get a plate of food, not being able to go out and do that themselves. So I think people need to see the kids. They need to understand that face of a child. And, we have, for example, what we call a biscuit, and I almost hate to call it a biscuit because it's so much more, but it's a recipe that was developed for us scientifically for this quite a large heart-shaped biscuit, and it's fortified with all the goodness. And one can almost imagine when you're sitting with a group of kids from an impoverished area that probably haven't eaten for days, they go into a soup kitchen, they're expecting to get a slice of bread and a soup that's probably so thin you could drink it through a straw. But you give them something a little bit more. You give them the biscuit, and I can't. You've actually got to go onto our Facebook page and see
What's in the biscuit?
Pictures.
What's in the biscuit?
Yeah, it's high. It's a very high protein concentrate. So the biscuit itself is almost like a digestive biscuit. So some people have sort of almost equated it to the old military style rat pack type biscuit. But it's got a lot of protein in it. We have extra proteins, and then we've got other vitamins and minerals that the CPUT have developed, and we actually import from overseas to put into the biscuit. So it's a meal. It's everything this child needs for his daily nutritional intake. And when they stand there, and I've got pictures, obviously most of these we can't publish as they are, but you've got this child holding this biscuit. It's a shape of a heart. It's just that symbol of love and care. And I know these kids haven't had a biscuit or something like this. I don't even know if ever. I mean, it's that bad. What I love about the biscuit as well is they don't see it as this sort of charity food, the slice of bread with a bit of peanut butter on, which they're used to getting. It's a little bit of a treat, but it's got so much goodness in it.
Sure.
Yeah, it's you can't put it in words. You've actually got to see it.
So if nothing else, all I can do is just come and bake a biscuit. You'll accept my help.
Well, accept your help with absolute grace. Definitely.
Carl, bless you. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Carl van Blerk is a managing director and founder of Garden Route Food Pantry. What I'm hoping is that this starts in the Garden Route and spreads like wildfire. We cannot get more, more than enough of this kind of work. It's absolutely amazing. And I think this is going to be a fantastic model where government, private sector, NGOs, every single person literally comes together and comes up with a solution. That for me is the way to go. So love it, love it, love it. It's called a food pantry. Go to the website and take a look.